And welcome in to the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise podcast. I am your host, Evan Marinofsky, joined today by the great, the amazing, the wonderful Patrick Donnelly. Pat, what's up?
Wow, great, amazing, and wonderful. I'd say I'm feeling all those things today. Um, it's great to have the season back. You know, we've talked about it, fall hockey can kind of be a little bit of a slog at the end there. Nice to have we know kind of where we're going on a given game day. We know like what days are going to be covered. It's just nice schedules.
It's
And the hockey's been
amazing.
great so far.
It's great. I love it. I love the preps, especially the beginning of the prep season. It reminds me of like I love the beginning of high school hockey season when I was in high school. Because that first month is so fun. It's new, it's fresh. It's December. December's a fun month. It's before Christmas. Then Christmas comes and it's awesome. And then after New Year's, it's like into the dog days. But this time of year is so fun. And for us coming out of fall and for all these prep players coming out of fall, these games I'm not saying fall doesn't matter because it does, but these games, there's standings, trying to win a championship. You're playing for your school. Your classmates are going to the games. You make a bad play, you go to school the next day. Your friends make fun of you. You score a goal, they're going nuts. Some of these games have videographers. Like shout out to Robert Chalmers, who does a phenomenal job. I'll always see him. I saw him at St. George's, saw him at Dexter.
Saw him at
Phenomenal
Nobles on
videos.
Sunday, the
Yeah,
ISL.
he's everywhere. He's terrific. You should go check him out. Cohen's Hockey on Instagram. And they make it even cooler, like for these kids. Like Carter Meyer and Finn Sears, I think, have just like videographers following them the whole year, which thanks. You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. um, but on a serious note, heck of a start to the year for prep. Where have your travels taken you?
I was at Nobles last Wednesday for Nobles versus New Hampton on the girls' side, which was a great game. BB&N and Dexter on Friday at Dexter. Disappointing. It was a tie. But
Hate
yeah,
ties.
it's just 5 minutes of 5-on-5 in OT, really.
No
Um,
thanks.
you think that's gonna settle it? But no, that was a good game. Back and forth, trading blows. And then this past Sunday at Nobles for the ISL Keller Showcase. Last year I was at Seb's for that. This year went to Nobles. Saw some different teams, pair of games. So good hockey so far.
Yeah, we'll get into that and sort of your takeaways from it, what you thought, because there was a big top 10 matchup there. Um, I was at Dexter for Dexter Cushing on the boys, the first Wednesday of the season. Some teams play before Thanksgiving. I ironically enough was really sick around Thanksgiving, so I was like, I'm just gonna wait for the start of the year to start going to games. Like Andover beat Cushing. Which was a pretty big upset. I mean, Andover's going to be near the top 10. They were almost in my top 10 this week. We'll get to them in a bit. Um, but so I went Dexter Cushing, saw Dexter get a big win there. And then Saturday I was at St. George's. I'd never been. Warm rink. Like so warm that I almost had to take my coat off. There were kids there
Wow.
in shorts. I have never I
Did they
saw
have like the heaters above the?
no, well, I didn't see them, but like I was walking in and I see the rank like through the windows and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a cold one. Like this looks like a ice box. And I opened the door and I'm like, kind of bracing myself, and it was so warm. And thank God I didn't wear like a winter hat or anything because I would have like passed out. It was so warm. Um, Great game there. St. George's almost came back. They were down 3-0. They made it 3-2. Avon ended up pulling away and winning 5-2. So my first two games of the year were 5-2 wins for the higher ranked team. And then went up to Exeter the next day on Sunday for the Invitational. I love that tournament. I think it's great because it brings a lot of teams. Like KUA played Kent, which we'll get to kind of in our rankings. Those two teams would never really play each other if it wasn't for the Exeter Invitational, unless it was the playoffs. Got to see Rivers there. I saw them play Hebron though, so like wasn't a lot to take away from that. And then also got to see Brunswick, which I want to talk about a fair amount because that team is going to shock some people. Um, and Frederick Gunn was there, Exeter, and New Hampton, Connor Gorman, friend of the podcast. So, great start to the year. It's a fun time. And then we have the holiday tournaments, the Christmas tournaments in like 2 weeks, which we got to get into next week. So, fun times. It's a fun time of year. So we'll start with
Yeah,
boys.
yeah. Boys, already a big shakeup in your rankings. KUA 5-0. They take over the top spot. You have Avon up there at 2. They stay put. Salisbury down to 3 from 1. And Brunswick, you mentioned big jump into the top 10 landing at number 8. What are your sort of overarching takeaways from this?
Yeah, like Kimball Union really, I don't want to say shocked me because that's not the right word, but they dominated Kent. And Kent is a good team. They were number 10 in our preseason. They fall out. I mean, they're just right in that, 11, 12, 13 range. I think to me, Kent is a team that has a lot of new faces. It's going to take time for them to gel. I put Frederick Gunn sort of in that same camp of like a lot of new guys who are really talented. They're just playing together for the first time. It's going to take some time. It's okay. If Kent played KUA, I wrote this in my Exeter Invitational takeaways. If Kent plays KUA at the end of the year, it's going to be a much closer game, probably a much better game. Um, KUA does not have the high, the high end guy like Sadowski or Ledrew, maybe Simmers or Watroba turn into that. But they're deep. They're much deeper. They have three legit lines that can score. And I think that to me was one of the biggest, like, holy crap. And they play together all fall. So, like, this is midseason for them. This is not the beginning of the year. Um, so they get that advantage. But they, to me, right now, after watching them, because again, and by the way, Salisbury falling out of number one is not really their fault. They had one game, they tied Taft, they outplayed them. Um, Avon just beat St. George's, and KUA beat Kent. So that moves them ahead because they beat they won their games and they beat better teams. That's how the rankings work every week. And doesn't mean that I think Salisbury is worse. I haven't seen Salisbury yet. It also, I think what people need to realize with these rankings is it's not who we think the top, like the 10 best teams are at the end of the year or overall. It's sort of the 10 best teams at that moment. It's sort of a snapshot in time. Seb's last year was not a top 10 team for a lot of the year. They ended up being in the Elite Eight. So, like, again, it fluctuates. But KUA to me at number one, they're deep. They're deep. They beat Kent. Lucas Siomos and Nick Evans are two really high-end prep defensemen for them. And Blake McMiniman, his numbers are off the charts already this year in net. And he's a great story to watch. He's like 5'9", but he's a phenomenal goalie. I wrote this in my Exeter takeaways. Like, guys try to go high on him, and he doesn't go down. So, like, he's great up high. Very curious to see what he ends up doing. He does have an offer from Army West Point. His dad played there. So very curious to see what ends up happening with him. So KUA moves into the number one spot. Avon at 2. They stay at 2. They beat Williston in their first game. Then they beat St. George's. And again, Avon didn't play perfect. They have a lot of young guys. That team, a lot of 08s, a lot of new 07s in different spots. Again, going to take time to gel. But to me, Pat, the reason they're number 2 and they stayed number 2 and they didn't move to 3 to make room for Salisbury or anything was because A, they beat St. George's, but B, they beat St. George's, a top 10 team, and they didn't play their best. Like, that was what was wild to me, was they
Beat them by
didn't play
3.
their best, and they beat them by 3. The last goal was an empty netter. But, like, by the way, Cooper Snee last year was a Providence commit entering the season and wasn't a point per game guy. And I think a lot of people were like, huh, that's interesting. Scored a hat trick and was dominant. And, like, I would say next to Everett Baldwin was the next best player in that game. So Cooper Snee, takeover game for him. Really played and it's just such a good two-way force. A total Providence guy, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
that's a Providence hockey player. So Avon goes to 2. Salisbury goes to 3. Not much change to me. Like, I think those teams are sort of, comfortably up there. So yeah, those are my top 3 as of right now.
Yeah, coming out, you got Dexter sliding to 4. Cushing stays put at 5. Noble's up a couple spots. Holderness stays put. Brunswick, like we said. This kind of next middle tier. What do you make here?
Yeah, this is where I had a tough time. I had a tough time. I really struggled with these rankings this week. There's some weeks that are easy. It's like, oh, this one goes here, boom, 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 boom. And then there are weeks like this first one where it was kind of hard to tell. Like, Dexter beats Cushing, which is big because Cushing at the time was 5 and they still are number 5. But then they lose to St. Mark's, which is why St. Mark's jumps in to number 10. But again, like, am I moving Dexter down to 5? Am I moving them 2 spots? No. So I moved them down 1 spot. Cushing was a tough one as well because Cushing loses to Andover. They lose to Dexter, but then they beat Winchendon. They beat Stansted. They're on a little streak here with two straight wins. But I also don't look at them yet as a team that would be in that 6, 7, 8 category. And like Nobles, if they beat Pomfret, probably moves into 5. Like Nobles got a huge win against Belmont Hill, so they moved up, I think, 2 spots, which is big in these top 10 rankings. But like, I don't know if they're better than Cushing. I didn't see Nobles play. You can speak to that better, and like, your opinion matters more on that. But like,
But I
I,
haven't
I
seen
just
Cushing play. That's the thing.
well, okay, sure, but like, I think Cushing's going to take a long time to figure out their offense because they're stacked on D. Max Korvik's great in net. Up front, sort of a vacuum left, and it's going to be up to those guys to step up, like Axel Favreau and Max Deneen, and guys like Chase Warsofsky. But like, they haven't given me a true reason yet to fall out of that top 5. I have a tough time putting, and they might go to lower. And I think it also comes down to the teams below them. Like Holderness beat Hebron 13-0 and Pingree 3-0. They haven't played anybody good enough for me to be like, they're moving up. Like, and that's no fault of their own. Like, that's not their fault. But I can't move them up yet because there are other teams that have played better teams. So Nobles sits at that 6 spot, Holderness at 7. Brunswick is the team. Like, I was, to me, like, my takeaway story is out by the time you guys are. Well, I hope it's out. It was over 2,000 words, so maybe it isn't out yet. My takeaways from Exeter is out, and my first like 2 or 3 are about Brunswick. Brunswick, we did this. I did a season preview on them. Young team. Um, you know, hard to expect from a young, like, what to expect from a young team. Joe Salandra is phenomenal. Harvard commit, so like, obviously he's good. He was the top scorer at USA's Select 16 camp this year. Freaking scored a nasty goal on Sunday. Pat, like, got the puck at the point because he's at the point on the power play, and just like the quickest little snapshot, and it was a pro shot, and the thing just went right in. Um, Great patience with the puck, all that stuff. Mason St. Louis leads the team in points with 9, back off his injury. He was phenomenal, so smart. Yes, he's the son of Marty St. Louis. And then Cam Manella, an 09. We love the 09s and kind of the guys that could be making a good case for the national development team. He 3 points against New Hampton on Sunday, and a goal, 2 assists, runs the power play. Really good player. And Dylan Lee Stack in net looks like the real deal. I know he gave up 6 to Exeter on Saturday. I wasn't there for that, but I was there for him making 29 saves against New Hampton on Sunday. So looked really good. They move into 8. They're 3-0-1 right now. So I like them. And that's sort of that crop right there. What'd you think of Nobles Bell Hill? I'm curious.
I don't think 4-0 is super indicative of the game. I mean, Tucker Monroe stood on his head. He was awesome. There's a ton of sequences where it's like, how the heck did Belmont Hill not score there? Making all sorts of saves and scrambles. Seemed pretty sound in his movements. I thought he was probably the best player. I think I think Belmont Hill's offense took a little while to find its groove, which is why, in the second period, really good power plays, just couldn't convert. And in the third, just kind of throwing the kitchen sink at Monroe. Um, but I mean, kind of in that vein of pushing for offense, got a little loose. Kyle O'Leary was awesome for Nobles. He's a moose. He was,
Huge.
he did whatever he wanted around the net. And I think Teddy McCausland had a really good game. Like I wrote it in my takeaways, just winning plays, like plays that lead to wins. Might not show up in the box score, but beating some icings, some awesome hustle down low in the penalty kill, bleed some extra seconds. Finally got rewarded with a nice hustle play for the empty netter. Just winning plays. And Ethan Cox with a really really good goal as the horn sounded. Probably went in with like .2 on the clock. Um, so, I mean, there was a lot of skill to be had. Um, you know, Belmont's top line was really good as well, I thought, with Bosco. And Jake Tavares had a good game as well. They just couldn't break through. I don't quite want to say they got goalied because um, you know, they like there were some miscues that Nobles took advantage of, but also in net, Belmont Hill got just as good a performance out of Keegan Wilson, I believe.
Yep.
So great goalie game. Wouldn't have shocked me if Ethan Cox's goal was the only one of the game, the way it was going. But again, Noble's just pretty impressive, just kind of the way multiple lines are able to contribute. And even on D, Chris Soja, I thought had a really good game as one of the younger players there too. So yeah,
Yeah, Nobles is interesting because like if they can get Monroe to be at least an above average goalie, that's a team that will be in the top 10 the whole year. Because up front they're stacked. They have a good decor. Like that's a team that to me, I agree with you. Is real good. And Belmont Hill, like they were another team to me. Like they lose to Nobles, I moved them down. I think 3 spots. They beat Northfield Mount Herman 7-3. I'm not moving them out of the top 10 yet. Had a tough enough time with these 9 and 10s. Like, so I have St. Mark's. St. Mark's joins the top 10. In large part, they beat Milton Academy 5-2. Milton Academy is a good team. And then they beat Dexter 5-1. Now, they got an absolutely great game out of Justin Brisebois and net. 40 saves to beat Dexter. On Friday night, he was great. And then St. Mark's goes and loses to Winchendon 4-1 on Saturday. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So that's the tough thing. It's like Andover was the same type of thing. Like I was okay. Does Andover move into that number 10 spot? They tied Pomfret 2-2, which like okay, like Pomfret tied Nobles. They beat Albany Academy. It really came down to Andover versus St. Mark's for that final spot, and Dexter was ranked a little bit higher than Cushing was. So I gave the to have Dexter's offense get 1 goal is impressive. So say that's why St. Mark's gets the number 10 spot. They get a hat trick from Cam McPherson. Caden Pellegrino with 4 points, a grade 09, potential NTDP evaluation candidate. Really good playmaker. Had 4 points against Milton. So they move into 10. And then it was tough to move St. George's out. That was the other thing. Like I wanted to keep St. George's in, but you gotta sort of the what have you done for me lately thing. St. George's, I believe, is 2-1, 2-1-1 to start the year. They tied Brunswick in their first game. Then they beat Thayer 8-4, Roxbury Latin 6-4, Avon Old. Then they lose to Avon 5-2. I believe they were down to Roxbury Latin 4-2 at one point. Again, good offense. I just with them, the question is depth and just making sure they get that good goaltending all the time. Tyler King, I thought played pretty well against Avon. Again, like Tyler King, it's his first year starting. He's a sophomore, 08. Like they're going to be growing pains, and that's okay. It's going to take time. And I think you're going to see that throughout this season with them. And so they'll be back in for sure. Andover was close. Uh, Obviously, St. Mark's in that 10 spot. And then who else? Berkshire was in the hunt. Kent was tough to move them out. They have some big matchups coming up. I think they have Brunswick this week. So they're going to be, getting chances to get back in the top 10 for sure. So yeah, those are my teams like around the top 10. I want to mention before we shift gears to girls some wild results the first night of the season for boys. I love getting home and checking the scoreboard on USHR because it's like, oh my God, like I had a parent come up to me at the Dexter game, like asking me scores. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like I'll check when I get home. And they're like, you don't have some sort of special like way to get. I'm like, no, man, like I'm just like you. I'm just like you. See, Pat, you and I we're just like everybody else. We get the scores when you get the scores. Um, but that first night, on Wednesday, BBNN goes into Exeter and beats them 3-2. Like I was floored at that. BBNN I think has won 17 total games since 2017, which is like low key. I think that's 7 seasons, 8 maybe. It's hard with the COVID year how you count that, but like James Potter, their goalie, makes 54 saves to beat Exeter. Like Tim Whitehead, head coach Kimball Unions, always says to me, teenagers are unpredictable. And that's a great way to put it because BBN goes in, beats Exeter first game 3-2. And then Exeter ties Frederick Gunn a couple days later. So, like, that goes to show you how insane the season can be at times, where the losses can be. So that was a big one. And that was sort of it for like big results from I mean St. Mark's upset Dexter. That's big on Friday night. A lot of credit to them. So yeah, those are sort of my big takeaways from the boys' side so far. In terms of like who's leading the region in stats at the moment, you have Felix Antoine Parento from, or excuse me, no, you don't. You have Adrian Mendoza from North Yarmouth Academy with 11 points in 5 games. Um, Again, they've played 5 games, so you're going to have those guys at the top. So, yeah, an interesting start. Carter Meyer already has 8 points in 4 games. So, like,
Decent.
yeah, that's the huge.
Ho
Um,
hum.
Exactly. So again, they're like that's the thing. Like I saw Rivers beat Hebron 11-0 on Sunday, and it's like, yeah, like Carter had his way, Finn Sears, Sam Pandolfo, Will Irving, and Will Hatton had their way up front. But like, what am I supposed to take away from that? No disrespect to Hebron. Hebron's in a tough spot. Um, they're just not up to that level. And they lost to Kent the day before at the Exeter thing 9-2. So uh cool start to the year. Chaos, I would say, through the first week, which is good for us. Maybe not so great for the teams. Um, but interesting nonetheless. Let's transition to girls. The girls side. You have your top 10. New number one.
Yeah, and this like I was kind of in the same boat with you where I struggled with my rankings because it's such a small sample, and you're trying to weigh the current snapshot versus what I think these teams will be. But rankings, we got to do it with the recency bias. What have you done for me lately? Um, Williston, number one. Uh, they have a pretty good win over St. Paul. St. Paul's kind of on the fringe of our top 10. A team that made the Elite Eight last year, very good team. They'll be in the mix. So quality win. That's what gives Williston the edge here to jump up from 3-1. Nora Curtis right out of the gate, 2 goals. Mia Daly with a goal. So that's 2 players that Williston's going to need to continue what they did last year, doing what you need them to do. Liv Farabee, great in that as well. Um, it's going to get tough though. Harrington Invitational next week's always probably the best holiday tournament with just the quality teams that go. You get Cushing, who is a big prove it game for Cushing tonight or tomorrow at the time of recording on Wednesday. In Northwood, team that we don't see a lot out there in Lake Placid, but should give them a challenge as well. Um, Two is probably the biggest jump. You have New Hampton coming up from 5. Um,
I
and
was gonna say that's a statement week for New Hampton.
yeah, statement win over Nobles. That was a great game. They hung 4 on them. Nobody scored more. Nobles gave up 3 goals just once last year. They never gave up 4. So for that to happen, first game of the season, New Hampton. I mean, Julia Laughlin was the X factor. Addie Peel is a perfect fit on that blue line. She looked great in that game. Kadu Silton, 2 goals against Milton. They beat them 6-0. Milton's a good team, just probably not in our rankings tier. Um, so 2 solid wins. Both goalies looked solid. You know, uh, Kara Cusack was a little shaky down the stretch, but a good game overall against Nobles, and Elizabeth Vincent, who Craig Churchill's really excited with a shutout in her debut against Milton. Good week for New Hampton. Nobles dropping from 1 to 3. That's what I was just saying, where it's like, it's the what have you done for me lately sort of mindset that we have to have with these rankings. Um, and I mean, both their games were against top 5 teams that, at least by us. So I mean, a quality loss, if you want to call it that, and a quality win for sure. Um, you know, Almost came back against New Hampton. It was a bit of a fire drill at the end of that third period. They scored 2 straight. All of a sudden, it's 4-3. Oh my God, they're going to do it. Nobles. It's just because it's Nobles. They never lost last year. They're going to do it. Um, but again, they're young players up front who we were sort of expecting to take that next wave, like Lily Bromley, Alexa Georgantis, looked really good against New Hampton. They came through again in the win over Loomis Chafee. They beat them 1-0. Anika Jonas, 4 isn't indicative of how she sort of had a better game against New Hampton. I wouldn't put any of the goals on her, and then obviously a 32 save shutout against Loomis is very impressive. So again, Noble's sort of in the same boat as Williston, where quality games. And they have a tough test this weekend. St. Mark's is off to a pretty solid start. Choate, and then you have the Harrington tournament.
Yeah, and that Harrington tournament obviously is sort of stacked with teams. You have Andover falling to 4, but that's not really their fault. They have not played yet.
Yeah,
Um,
Andover
and
starting a week behind everyone else again.
and they don't
They
they play one game before they go to the Patsy Auden.
Yep. And it's a big game against Dexter. So thrown right into the deep end. No floaties.
Clearly. And then you have Loomis falling one spot to 5. Dexter stays at 6. BB stays 7. The only real change after that is Cushing and Groton switch places. So no new teams. But what was up with the Cushing and Groton move?
Yeah, Cushing, Groton sliding, not a reflection on them. It's more a reflection of Cushing. 3-0 and 0. Very impressive wins. 6-0 win over Brooks, 7-2 over Worcester Academy. Sort of taking care of business there. And then 4-3 win over Tabor, who Tabor's sort of in that next tier outside of our top 10, who could find their way in at some point. Julia Lambert's had a great start to the season. She has 7 points so far in 3 games. Bella Freitas, no time at all doing what she did in the MIAA, like what it took for, her to get going in prep. She had a pair in the opener. Um, like I said, when we were talking about Wilson, massive prove it game for Cushing against Wilson, which is crazy that a week into the season, you have such a big kind of prove it type of game. But um, if Cushing wants to prove that they're in that same tier this year, um, you know, quote unquote quality loss even would count just as much as a win, I would think. Um, so yeah, Groton, sort of the usual suspects. Maddie Cronin has 6 points in 2 games. Tina Scalise, 4 goals in 2 games. Hazel Hughes,
No surprise on that one.
yeah,
Jeez.
Hazel Hughes is someone they would need to to build upon last season and kind of bring up that secondary wave of production. And so far, so good. She has 3 goals in 2 games. Um, some challenging matchups: Tilton and Tabor, kind of up next before I believe they play in the Watkins tournament at Cushing. Um, and then Loomis. It's tough with one game and you drop it, getting shut out by Nobles. But again, that's what we would call a quality loss. 30 they put 32 shots on net. They just kind of ran into the hot goalie. Dexter and BB&N stay put. Very little separates these teams, and even if you look at their results so far, it's identical. They tie, which is two kind of they're just going at it, trading blows, and that was a good game. Unfortunate, ended in a tie. And then they both come back with huge offensive showings. Dexter 5-0 over Middlesex, BB&N 7-0 over Pomfret. Savannah Littlewood's been awesome so far. She had a great game against Dexter, for BB&N, and then Dexter. Um, Evelyn Doyle was someone I am remiss to have not have seen a lot more last year, and the few times I've seen her this fall, and against BB&N. I know when Joe Pohorilis had that feature on her in one of our previous magazines, Maggie DeVerner called her maybe the best defensive forward she's ever coached. And it's not hard to see why. She's awesome at the faceoff dot. She's, you know, you always just popping up in the right place, whether with a stick check or a good read to get into a passing lane. Um, really living up to the hype defensively there. And she had a goal against Dexter. Maddie Murphy's been awesome. She had a hat trick against Middlesex. Really huge play driver from defense. And then Deerfield stays put. 2 wins. They outlast St. Mark's 3-2. They take care of business at NYA 2-1. Ali Corrieri, good start. Chloe Cleaves, who's up from with Greenwich Academy. She's a Yale commit, starting on the right foot with a goal and an assist. So that's kind of what we make of the rankings. Some big matchups, but I wouldn't say quite chaos like the boys' side.
Yeah, and that's not, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there are going to be weeks that it's different. There are going to be weeks that nothing really changes for boys and weeks that everything changes for the girls. Um, I think it's interesting how New Hampton with the girls is sort of moving into that elite tier of, you have those teams up top with, your Willistons, your Nobles, Phillips Andover, and now New Hampton seems to be a legitimate team up there. Now it's up to them to hold on to that, because if they put their foot off the gas, then like they're back down with everybody else. But it feels like they've made a legitimate statement over the last week, especially with that win against Nobles.
Yeah, I wrote this after the game. It's, we talked a lot about them being the best team outside of the Elite Eight, probably the Elite Eight caliber team last year. They had several ties that if they had turned them into wins, probably puts them into the Elite Eight. And they put their money where their mouth is. Big win over Nobles, really impressive. And this stretch coming up before the new year, it's going to kind of be important to solidifying that footing. Quality games. You have, Governors certainly isn't a pushover. St. Paul's, like we said, kind of in that next wave. Thayer's in that same mix as St. Paul's. Then you have a couple top 10 matchups at the Watkins tournament with Groton and Deerfield, and that's just the guaranteed games. Who knows what you might face when you move deeper into that tournament before the holiday break. Coming out of it too, BBN and Tabor right off the hop. So certainly a stretch where they'll be able to solidify that standing.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting for sure. So I feel like we've kind of hit on everything prep. Now, during the year, this episode will include MIAA stuff as well, but MIAA hasn't really started yet with Mass High School hockey. So that's kind of the landscape of prep. Good first week for both. Exciting, kind of an exciting week coming up, but it's more so the week after when the holiday tournaments start.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be what's big.
Couple other teams I would just mention is St. George's and Maddie Laha. She's a Holy Cross commit, I believe. She's having a great start to the year with 5 points in 2 games. A couple good wins for St. George's. St. Mark's with early season win over Westminster, who we kind of had right outside our rankings entering the year, and then a competitive loss against Deerfield, only 1 goal. Be interested to see how they fare against Nobles this weekend. Believe Choate lost. They were in that next tier as well. Double check who it was against. Yeah, Choate lost 5-3 to Lawrence Academy. Lawrence, obviously under first year coach Nikki Petrick, nice team to keep an eye on. They felt they had more to give last season. So, yeah, those teams, I think, pretty solid first weeks for them.
For over 20 years, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey has been helping hockey players of all ages develop their individual skills and improve on all aspects of their game. Through structured drills and innovative training equipment, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey's intense on-ice instruction challenges each student to be the best at their ability. Find a hockey clinic or summer camp that is right for you today at nateshockey.com. That's N-A-T-E-S hockey.com. Eric Nate's Euro Hockey, train to be the best.
I was at the Absolute Filth Hockey Wax website the other day, and I was wondering to myself what Absolute Filth's Dragon's Blood smells like. Is it fiery, or maybe it's sweet like the scent of victory after a triple overtime game? Probably a mystical aroma that'll magically make you dominate the ice. Knowing the folks at Absolute Filth, I bet it's part fierce dragon, part subtle smokiness, with a dash of awesomeness jammed into that giant puck of wax. Whatever it is, I'm definitely grabbing some Dragon's Blood for my next game. Gonna slap that wax on my stick and play with fire. Sorry boys, but the locker room's about to smell like a medieval fantasy tonight. Check out Dragon's Blood and more over at Absolute Filth's website, hockeywax.com. Perfect for the holidays, and they've even got a 2-for-1 sale going on right now with free shipping. Awaken your inner dragon and rule the ice at hockeywax.com.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students can earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters. and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
Yeah, so good first week. And that's sort of the prep landscape as it stands. Before we go, though, can't forget to do overtime with our great producer, David Yaz.
Overtime.
Yes, welcome back to Overtime. My microphone was off. It's been a little while since the last Overtime, gentlemen, but it's great to be back. So, very simple. We give 3 questions to each of our panelists here. Evan and Pat completely unprepared for these questions. Here they are. It's the improvement. It's the home improvement issue of Overtime. How would you improve the game of hockey? Question number 1. Evan, we'll start with you. What change or changes would you make to improve the TV viewer experience for hockey games? So that could be different angles, different replays, different mic'd up players, the intro panel, anything you want to change the TV experience. Evan, your thoughts?
It's a good question. I don't have one that's like right off the top of my head, but one that I like the idea of is miking up players is a great one, and having that be more of a consistent thing. And it already is becoming a consistent thing. But I think also giving people the option to listen to the game without play-by-play people. I like the play-by-play guys, but there are a lot of people who just want to listen to the game and hear the crowd noise, and it's like they're at the game. And some people just like that. I like the play-by-play people. I like to hear it. Kind of elevates it, but there are people who like.
I was going to say you could use the mute button, but I hear what you're saying. You want the crowd
you want to hear
noise.
the
You
crowd,
want
the
horn,
the goal horn,
the whistle,
everything.
Yeah, the clattering of the skates.
Players on the ice yelling at each other. Also, like, I would also add, this just came to my head. Like, I don't know if you could do this on network TV, but like ESPN Plus, maybe you can have some expletives. So you mic up a guy for the whole game and you let it just play live and you hear the guy the whole game. And no, you can't cancel him for whatever he says. You can't cancel him.
Immunity.
He's immunity.
Could be some questionable things in scrums around the net.
That's the thing, but that would be an interest. They'll never do it because that would violate every privacy thing in the world. But like,
there are some great hot mics during COVID with no fans.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for that, Evan. It's why with this world of reality TV and mic'd up, and the NFL does Hard Knocks, but that's heavily edited. I'm waiting for the day when they do a live TV broadcast of a sporting event. I mean, do it on a 7-second delay if you have to. That way you can bleep out anything really horrible.
That too.
Yeah, they do it with the McAfee show on ESPN.
Do they?
Yeah, they have it on like a 7-10 second delay, and they bleep out the F-bombs.
Yeah, but then have mics everywhere. Have cameras everywhere on the sidelines. What does a player say when he skates off the ice and when he gets called for a penalty, whatever. All right, Pat, you've already chimed in here, but any other thoughts on improving the TV viewer experience for a hockey game?
To Evan's point about turning off like the announcers, I would like to shout out ESPN with the ESPN Plus Bruins Red Wings game last week. The mics for the crowd and like the ambiance were awesome. Like noticeably very good. Like the crowd pop,
enhanced more than it normally is.
Yeah. But in general, I would say, and like, I don't mean to sound like yelling at a cloud here, but because I partake in sports betting from time to time, but it's way too much. It's just in our faces. Every other face-off, live money line. Here are the odds of this face-off. Like, I don't need that. Maybe like something at intermission. Like if you think, oh, so-and-so's odds for a goal or 2-point night if they already have a point, maybe. But I feel like it's way too much.
Yep. I'll add on to that. This isn't necessarily gambling, I guess, but the win probability thing has gotten out of control. I assume they do that in hockey like other sports. It's for some reason it's just straight. Well, the team's win probability is 72%. That's great. Now a goal scored against them. Well, now it's down to 49%. Oh, well, I could have told you that.
I like the deserve to win-o-meter.
I have not seen that. I would like to see.
One of the I think moneypuck.com does it, and sometimes it'll pop up after a game if like someone puts up 40 shots on net and loses like 2-1 or something.
Life's cruel, and so is hockey. Question number 2. What change or changes would you make for the in-person fan experience at a rink or stadium? This could be anywhere from NHL arenas to the glorious high school rinks that you guys have frequented. How would you improve the fan experience in-person hockey? Pat, you go first.
I would say the ability of replay, or the availability of replays. Obviously, not every local rink is going to have a video board, but I go to a college game or Bruins game and say they're reviewing something. Bruins games are typically good with showing a replay of what's being reviewed, because you'll whether you're there or not, you hear the crowd reaction. But some of the Hockey East games I've been to, and there's a million reviews, and every time they go into the box, you're looking up the video board waiting for a replay, and it's just B-roll of the bench, and there's no replay or anything, so you have no idea, because sometimes they don't announce what they're reviewing for, so you're just kind of sitting there for 5-7 minutes and having no idea what's going on. And a lot of college games, it happens multiple times a game, and it's very frustrating.
That's a great one, because the home viewer has no problem there. Not only do they see the replay, but it's all being explained to them.
Yeah, so there we were the other night at BU, pulling up the ESPN stream on our phone and rewinding to see what might have happened.
It's ridiculous.
Just show me the replay.
Evan, other thoughts from you on improving the spectator experience?
I can't believe this isn't already like a full-time thing. Order from your seat. You should there should be an app or a website you can go to, and you can order your food. Maybe you can scan a QR code on your seat or something. It would eliminate lines, especially during intermissions. If you want a thing of chicken tenders, you go on the app, you order it, you do Apple Pay or whatever it is, and when it's ready, when it's up in the window, or they, you go up and you go get it, and it's up there for like 3 or 4 minutes, and you can do that during a game or anything. And I hate that they had it during COVID, but I don't know what, and they did it to eliminate people being close together, but I don't know why they didn't keep it, because I haven't seen it. Because the lines are still ridiculous. The fact that we still deal with like crazy concession lines in 2024 going to 2025.
That's a great one.
It all comes.
It always comes
Charlie
back
Jacobs.
to. Go ahead, Pat. You go.
You know what Charlie Jacobs will say to you? He'll say, "Pay for the seat that someone will bring it to you for." All right.
That's true. That's right. He would, but you're not. No one's bringing it to me. I'm going up and getting it. But I don't have to wait
I can
in
also
line.
see like a logistical nightmare there, where like either food sitting there forever, people take the wrong orders, or sometimes there's technical and like the food never goes through. You're like, you're sitting there for 5 minutes. Where's my food? Just staring at them. So
at least there's no lines, though.
Yeah.
Like, at least with that, you could go up to the front desk where there's no line and say, "Hey, I didn't get my chicken fingers," and then give you a thing of chicken fingers. But I agree, there would be problems and people would take the wrong stuff. It's like Dunks. I've realized the Dunks mobile order, I can go up and get any order I want. They don't check it. I can grab every single one. I grab any coffee I want, whatever, because they don't check
My
it.
name is Evan M, and he can take Patrick D's order on the mobile order.
I could, but that's what I mean. But maybe you put numbers on it, or you have someone check it. I don't know. There's ways you can do it, but eliminate lines, be gone. Or the other thing, not to ramble on this, the Clippers have more bathrooms at their arena. Add more freaking bathrooms, so I'm not in line to use the toilet, to use the freaking urinal forever. It's ridiculous.
Good one. Use the women's bathroom. I'm sure that won't get you in trouble. It won't get you in trouble at all.
Great.
I just love how with Evan, it always comes back to the chicken tenders, chicken fingers. You're a fan of the little things in life that make you really happy, like you're a fan of chicken and waffles, Evan?
I love chicken and waffles. I like convenience too. Convenience is a big thing.
Okay. Finger food is great. I had the chicken and waffles last night at Jake and Joe's, which is not a sponsor of the show, but really, really good. Last question for overtime. What changes would you make to the NHL schedule? The NHL schedule. So this could be fewer games, could be more games, could be games on different days of the week, etc. Let's see. We're back to Evan starting on this one. Or is the NHL schedule perfect?
Well, no, it's not. I would.
Bad.
All right. I think I know what Pat's going to say, so I'm going to go something different in a completely different direction. In-season tournament. In-season tournament.
Here we go.
I love that. I think that's interesting. I make fun of it in the NBA, but I think it's good for kids. And I also think it creates more rivalry games. Do an in-season tournament with the Bruins, Maple Leafs, Canadians, Senator, do all the teams in the Northeast, do all the teams in the Midwest, whatever it is. I think that'd be good.
Well, you could argue the reason they did it for the NBA, the reasons are there for the NHL as well. They're both long seasons, and sometimes the playoff races are not really races because so many teams are already in. So extra added incentive to make some excitement in the regular season. I like it. Pat, any thoughts?
Yeah. Sometimes you just need a little juice on that Thursday night in February against Anaheim. I've said this before, but the Bruins don't play the Canadians enough. They don't play the Maple Leafs enough. They sorry, I don't need to see I love Dallas. I don't need to see Dallas come to the Garden once a year. And I know it's tough. It's maybe a Dallas fan in Boston. It's their only chance to see Dallas or whatever. But go back to what you had at I think pre-lockout, where it's once a year. You play the Western Conference team. I think it was once a year, and it flips on where it is, something like that. But the Bruins last year, they played 2 games against the Canadians within a week span, and then they didn't have another game until March, and it was a random one-off Thursday night, and that was the only other game against the Canadians last season. You should be playing the teams in your division 4 or 5 times probably instead of just 3. It's just we talk about Bruins Canadians rivalry doesn't have the juice because they're 2 teams going in different directions, but they also don't play enough to have a rivalry and to have that bad blood, especially when you're not meeting in the playoffs. It's kind of pre-manufactured for the Bruins and Leafs just because of the playoff meetings and stuff. It's not there anymore with the Canadians because they don't play.
And
also,
you go, Evan.
Go ahead. Okay. But I also think about we talk about travel, in NFL schedules or college football schedules. You're not going to every team every year. So when you go to a certain, it's I want to go there with all my friends. Think about if the Bruins played at Vegas once every 2 or 3 years. That would be a trip that you would people would plan. Or if they go to Anaheim or LA, I'm going to go to LA because they're playing the Bruins this year. I want to go see they play them every year there. So I feel like people are maybe I'll go next year or whatever. So that would help it as well.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. You got not too many games against Bruins Canadians, and over in baseball, you got the Red Sox playing the Yankees twice a week the whole season. I feel like it's tons of games. We need those rivalries. We need to hate the Canadians even more.
We do.
All right. Well, very good. You guys have completely solved all the problems of hockey in every way. I salute you. And back to you, Evan, to wrap things up.
No, there we go. I think we also just solved the problem of the in-game experience. Imagine if you had access to replays and you could order from your seat and you didn't have to be in line. I mean, it'd be the best
Along
game
those
ever.
lines, let me solve another problem for you. If you're chasing value out there at the concessions, instead of 4 people going up and getting their own thing of chicken tenders and fries, or you get maybe 2 or 3 tenders and a little bit of fries, 2 people split the giant bucket of chicken tenders. You each get I've done this. It's the value is crazy because what, $25? You divide it by 2, and it's this less than a price of a regular chicken and tender order, and you get more food. You get way more food per person.
You're right. You're 100%.
It's a little hack my friends and I have started doing. It's the value's there if you're chasing.
You shouldn't
value.
have said it. You shouldn't have. Now Charlie Jacobs
Secret's
hear
out.
this. And
Yeah, he's listening.
Delaware
On the next episode of RinkWise, we devote the entire episode of RinkWise next week to chicken
the red
tenders,
dot on my
how to
chest
get them.
We should. Garden chicken tenders are good. I'll say it.
Yeah.
Lucky's chicken, baby. Lucky's chicken.
All right.
But yeah, that's RinkWise.
Help out the people at home.
That's RinkWise, by the way. These are the weekly episodes you can look forward to. We have a lot coming. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Marinofsky. We'll see you at the Rink.